Good morning, everyone, and thank you very much for having me here in Mumbai, in India. It's really a great pleasure. Namaste. My name is Sana Röse, and I'm a young family business entrepreneur from Germany. And I'm here with our German family business delegation with nearly 20 family business entrepreneurs, next-gen Mittelstand, business leaders, founders. And it's for some of us the first time in India. And I come from a traditional family business. We produce concrete pipes in Germany for over 100 years now. And with me, our company is in the fourth generation. Additionally, I am the former federal chairwoman of one of Germany's largest family business associations. And in this function, I had the pleasure to represent over 6,500 family businesses, especially the next generation Mittelstand. And and in this association also, as I'm a founder and initiator from Entrepreneurs in Movement, we represent a large group of family business entrepreneurs, next generation leaders from every industry, with every size. That includes the young founders also we are today talking about, also young founders in the green and blue startup section. So let me start with one question. How many of you have built something that did not exist before? A business, a product, a team, a future. If you have, you know one truth. The process is not start in a laboratory. It does not start in a ministry. Process starts when an entrepreneur says, there is a problem, there is a chance, and I will not wait, and I will take action. And together with my parents, together with my husband, with my son, he's also here with 8 months, the fifth generation of our family business, we arrived here in India some days ago with a group of entrepreneurs to take part in this important conference. And some of us lead companies that are more older than 100 years now. Some build the companies for tomorrow. And all these entrepreneurs and companies are driven by responsibility, courage, and innovation. And the German Mittelstand, as you know, is the backbone of our economy. It creates jobs, trains talent, it develops long-term impact instead of short-term hype. And exactly this spirit fits perfectly with India. India brings speed and creativity. Germany brings industrial excellence and trust. And together, I'm sure we can combine the best of both worlds. And our oceans, which we are talking about today, against other things, feed billions of people. They move 90% of world trade. They stabilize our climate, and they are powerful economic engines. And we must protect this foundation, because if oceans collapse, economies collapse, jobs collapse, and the future collapses. And entrepreneurs have the tools to solve this. We can turn sustainability into competitiveness. We can turn protection into economic opportunities. And speaking of opportunities, as you know, we Germans love structure, and we Germans love perfect planning. And India taught us a lessons right from the start. The visa process kept us on our toes until the very last minute to make sure we were allowed to enter the country. And it showed us one thing very clearly. India makes us Germans more flexible. And that is a good thing. So after all, flexibility is the first rule of entrepreneurship. And if plan A does not work, we don't cry. We simply move to plan B, and if needed, all the way up to plan Z. So startups bring speed, Mittelstand brings global scaling. Together we deliver real solutions. So what do we need to do next? 3 things. First, we must build joint innovation labs for the ocean economy. Let us bring together German engineering excellence and Indian digital power, test technologies directly in the ports of Mumbai, for example, and beyond, improve them with young Indian talent, and then scale these solutions from India and Germany into the world. This is how we create smart globalization, not theory, action. Second, we must empower founders who are solving ocean challenges. Founders who replace plastic with new materials, for example. Founders who stop pollution in rivers before it reaches the seas. Founders who turn fish waste into new value. They need capital. They need market access. They need governments that remove barriers instead of building new ones. And third thing, we must invest in trust. Because process is personal. Partnerships are not created by signatures. Partnerships are created by people. So, through conversation, through real collaborations, through shared responsibilities and the courage to deliver. So, India and Germany can lead the world in the new blue economy. This is not a dream, it is a business plan. And they can lead the new blue economy, not because we are the fastest growing or the biggest, because we have the energy and the values to build what matters. And entrepreneurs never give up. Entrepreneurs take action. Entrepreneurs shape the future. And let us prove that sustainability and growth are partners. Let us show that innovation serves the planet and people, and let us unlock a new wave of economic success through healthy oceans, and let us build a better tomorrow together. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Sarna. I would like now to continue with our panel for those that are joining. This is the New Wave Green Blue Startups for Oceans and Economies. My name is Cristina Zumacero and I do represent BPI France. I'm a senior project manager supporting blue economy entrepreneurs in finding investors, blue economy investors. So, I do have the privilege to moderate this session with 4 panelists. I would like to start with Neha Jain, co-founder at Zero Cycle, a startup focusing on replacing the use of plastic in our daily lives with biodegradable seaweed products. Then we have Malshini Senaratne, Assistant Head of Department at the University of Seychelles. She is her research interests encompass blue economy, ecosystem, gender inclusivity, and business ventures. Then we do have Shelly Benja, Director and CEO at Environtech and Chairwoman at Corals. These are training organizations supporting sustainability, marine conservations, and then last but not least, we do have Ana Miguel dos Santos, partner at Deloitte, head of defense and security, and former member of the European Parliament. Thank you for joining. So our topic. Our topic is related to sustainability-focused startups that today are using technology to drive positive change. So they have the potential to transform conservation and the maritime ecosystem. we do have this, with the right focus, of course, they could fuel both sustainable growth and create new economic opportunities. But we need to understand as well how emerging innovations can shape a future on this maritime ecosystem and act as a catalyst for new economic opportunities. So we do have three driving questions that they Shagar Manthan asked us to reply. So the first question is related to how can green blue startups drive ocean and climate innovation as engines of sustainable economic growth? I would like to first start with Neha, as she is a founder of a startup. How do you see Green Valley Ventures balancing innovation with market viability?
Thanks, Maria, and thanks, Suare, for having me on this panel. So when we talk about innovation and balancing it with market viability, I think the question that most founders would ask is what is viability and what makes innovation viable? Is it the tech? Is it the scale of the tech? Is it the novelty of the raw material that you use? Is it the scale of the raw material that you have access to? And a lot of innovators typically think that if the technology scales, adoption would follow. And I think usually the viability of the innovation does not necessarily lie there. It has a lot to do with compatibility of the technology that you're building it for the world. The biggest successes we see is the novelty brings the brands to your doorstep. But for you to get the first check and the first PO from them is the compatibility of your solution with the existing ecosystem. And very, very early on, we realized that anything that we're building out of oceans or for the oceans needs not just the answer for the ocean and from the ocean. It is also linkage with the rest of the world, whatever materials and technologies that you're building. And just to give a very small example, when we look at technology, we look at technology not just as a tech transfer from material science labs to a commercialization. We also look at value chain A to a value chain B, and then how exactly someone from step 2 to step 3 is able to take our technology back to the brands. Most of the companies that are working in the innovation space are working closer to upstream and then downstream. And our responsibility is not just to solve the problem, which is immediate bio, it's actually the entire ecosystem. So I think the viability is making sure your technology is compatible with the rest of the ecosystem.
Thank you. And Malshini and Shelley, you both have an education and research background. Could you please let us know how they could be supporting these pathways in local and coastal context?
Thank you very much for the question. Good morning, everyone. So I come from the Republic of Seychelles, and we have a population of 120,000 people. 120,000, yes, 120, which is not a lot, right? So when I say this in India, it's not a lot. And I work at the University of Seychelles, and we are the only tertiary education institution in that country. And I have probably about 400 students as my student body. So again, not a big number when I talk about it in India. So I hope you understand immediately the constraints in the Seychelles when it comes to a human resource development perspective, even infrastructure perspective, financial capacity building. We are quite constrained with what we already have. And in 2018, we launched the Blue Economy model in recognition that we have more water than land to our name. So Seychelles has 1.3 million square kilometers of water as its sovereign land, and we have 455 square kilometers of land. So when you look at it, we really are more water or sea than we are terrestrial land. And we launched the model because we wanted it to sort of underscore three strategies: conserve our environment, our marine environment, build our economy, and also look after our people, right? So when it comes to education, when it comes to research, the University of Seychelles and all of the other educational institutions in the country really is trying to build up a skilled workforce. Very much trying to get our students into that mind frame that we are a large ocean I would say, a large ocean country. And we should really look at preserving that ocean space above everything else. So what do we do at the University of Seychelles? We have a Blue Economy Research Institute where we kind of try to pioneer blue economy research. We have an environmental sciences department. We also have a tourism department because obviously tourism and fisheries continue to be very much the economic bases that our country is focused on. However, that being said, you would also immediately recognize that we are not really pioneering into new spaces. So marine biotechnology, for example, aquaculture. We don't really have specialized programs or the people really to train or teach our students in these programs. So immediately here you would see that we also have very little space when it comes to building up our entrepreneurial capacity. So the University of Seychelles is looking into putting an incubator in place to try and sort of generate that entrepreneurial potential. But as of yet, this remains possibly a dream and not so much a reality, right? So I do want to make it a very realistic picture of where we stand right now, because my next few points will tell you that entrepreneurship will thrive even in the face of these constraints. So we have startups that are looking at converting plastic into other items for commodity purchasing. We have a company that is looking at making seaweed into fertilizer, and they have just started exporting that product into the EU. I have companies that are looking at making more modern fish processing plants as well. So startups are still thriving in the Seychelles. There is still potential for growth, but we are hindered by a lot of our capacity development constraints. I would like to say at this point that when it comes to education and research, our challenges really come from the fact that even at a secondary school level, we don't really have ocean curricula that's integrated. So by the time I get students at my university level, we really are starting from scratch. So what I really hope you take away from all of this is that, yes, we have lots of challenges in the Seychelles, but we are also very much a living lab. Pilots can sort of take off in the Seychelles. There's space for growth and scale, but what we need is partnership, not just with other countries, but also with educational institutions. So let me leave it there, and I'll pass it over to Shelley to give us a little bit more.
Thank you so much. Thank you for being in this panel and invited to this outstanding event. So my name is Shelley, and I'm the founder of a group of companies. One of them is Envirotech Education, which is a vocational education accredited training in the space of sustainable development, blue economy, and a bit more. Corals is the intellectual property owner and a research and development company that developed the first accreditations globally for marine habitat conservation and restoration in the vocational framework from certificate 2 to diploma, with hundreds of skill sets and micro-credentials from coral technicians to oyster and seagrass and kelp and much more. And answering your comment here, the same problem which you outlined is actually a global one. The blue has been excluded from vocational education as an accredited standards all around the world. When we started this research and development, it was in 2016, where in Australia, in 2016 and 17, we experienced the largest bleaching event in the world. We've seen 30% of the Great Barrier Reef immediately impacted. And even when we listen to the name, the Great Barrier Reef, you know that when the barrier falls, tidal inundation and other impacts will follow, which will have tremendous financial effect on communities. And whilst scientists are very important, a group of scientists cannot address what is at stake. So when the coral bleaching started, we put together an expedition of experts from around the world, and we visited indigenous communities across the Great Barrier Reef, and we interviewed government agencies, professors, doctors, all the way to the fishermen. And we knew that there are missing occupations. Just like gardeners can be trained how to look after grass, why does seagrass cannot have that same accreditation framework that can be delivered from high schools? And in these remote communities where the accreditation emerged, the Torres Strait Islands, there are no even high schools. So for sure, university degrees are not even available, yet they are the frontier of Australia. So 3 years of research and development with a big network that kept extending to get validation for these accreditation standards and these new occupations to be validated. And what was the outcome was amazing. All around Australia and the global experts said, don't stop with corals. We lost 95% of all kelp forest and seagrass and oysters and fisheries and shellfish. And so the outcome was that in the end of 2018, the first global accreditations in marine habitat conservation restoration was established in Australia. We deliver next week in the Red Sea coral gardening and coral accreditation with university partners. And so we established a community incubation hub called Perfect Sea in the Miriam language of the Torres Strait Pupikak-Malu. And since then, we have been privileged to develop in Australia funding for high schools. So in New South Wales, the Australian government is funding aquaculture delivery across high schools. And we had the privilege to deploy oyster reefs in Moreton Bay and, deliver and support startup companies to drive their produce by a local workforce. Because many projects and many startups have been, struggling to stand because the lack of local skilled workforce. I've seen many projects from sponges and so on failing for the inflated cost of fly-in, fly-out scientists. So any industry, from building to culinary, required skills workforce. And so does Blue Economy. So when I hear about green transition, which should be blue actually, I really want to emphasize that education and skilled local workforce is, in my opinion, the only way to actually deliver sustainable blue economy. And we are here because we are looking for partners to bring these accreditations to other countries and to other education partners. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sally. I will continue now with the next driving question that we have. So how can regulatory frameworks and international climate finance work together to curb greenwashing, ensure genuine sustainability, and advance ethical innovation in the blue economy? Anna, what role can local institutions play in ensuring these frameworks are context sensitive and enforceable?
First of all, good morning to everyone. I'm from Portugal, so a small country also, but with a very ancient history in terms of connection with oceans. Now, I think in a different perspective, more friendly. Let's say that I'm still a little bit politics, so my background in politics gives me that. So, but I was thinking I'm very delighted in hearing friends from Germany saying that we need more flexibility. So this is good, and also trust. So trust comes from dialogue. Trust comes from share of information. That's why, first, I think that this kind of initiatives are very good to improve trust. Trust is something that you build every day, every moment, with this share of information. So the new frontier of sustainability, it comes from information and ethics. This is the second part. And this is the main challenge for the ocean connections and for the ocean develop of economy. So I think that the biggest challenge for these new startups, and you are here with more, this is your business, this is your daily life, and we need this idea of ethics, frameworks, and responsibilities. And this is the big impact and the new challenge of tomorrow. How can we build sustainable relationships on this new economy, on this new blue economy? So we need to develop more relations, to share more information, and to bring more connectivity to this experience, the new experience and the ancient experience. It's not only about technology, it's more about experience and information and ethics. So Portugal has saying in another way, the European Agency for Maritime Security is based in Lisbon. So this is the new way of seeing this dual use and this relationship that we need to bring from security and defense of oceans. We need to rebuild this relation, because they are here to protect, not to explore, not to, conquer. It's more like we are here together, and with this share of knowledge, with these new partnerships, we can learn more how to exploit the ocean and being sustainable at the same level, this level of respect that we need to have to all the resources.
Thank you, Anna. Niha, from your perspective, what are the biggest challenges you face as a green blue entrepreneur to access this climate finance? You also need to maintain your sustainability values. Could you please share with us?
Certainly. So I feel whenever it comes to climate financing, it's important to understand who is available in the ecosystem to finance it. For technology-led companies, especially deep tech companies, the financing really starts from academia and academic institution incubating. There's also a lot of, if I may speak from personal experience, we've sailed through the valley of death, typically that's seen in startup, by winning a lot of awards, because there was neither debt, there was neither equity, there was neither a grant. It was, we've shown the scale of our technology and novelty and how it can sort of solve a big problem, and won awards, and that cash prize actually sailed us through our 2 years of just building and piloting and solving, and the cost of the failure was actually absorbed by that. But coming to your question on what are the biggest challenges with climate financing is at a very, very early stage, not necessarily getting the right guidance of what your technology should be. While the other side of the ecosystem, which is the climate financiers themselves, are looking to only finance technology which is closer to B2C and not the unglamorous B2B side of things. And that's typically your upstream and downstream. The closer you are to downstream, the closer you are to brands, you are having a solution which is most probably looking for a business innovation versus a technology innovation and a plugin. And backwards, you go closer to biomass and raw materials, and the cost of failure is very, very high, not just for the startup, but also for the climate financier. So the challenge is to really understand where the income should grow. Where the money should flow in the upstream and the downstream. And if the financiers are able to really understand that if I don't invest in technology A, every technology that is connected to B, C, and D that flows downwards is not going to be successful. Our VCs that have supported us for the last 4 years have understood the value of creating biomass and supporting that technology and anything that is required in terms of education, in terms of resources. That has really given us the trust to move forward, because every time you raise money, the question really is it the scale, is it the price? But the problem is the scale and the price is also dependent on who your suppliers are and who your vendors are and what your support system looks like. So ensuring that your entire support system gets the money is one of the biggest challenges in this ecosystem.
Thank you, Niha. And just to continue on this topic, Malshini and Shelley, how can we prevent this greenwashing? How these institutions, which regulatory frameworks they should have?
I think that if we actually acknowledge that ocean health can only be measured by one currency alone, which is ocean life, and if we make ocean life as the currency, which we measure to standards, because we spoke about trust. So trust is also creating standards which hopefully will be accepted as a global standards, or at least by different governments. So when we measure marine life as the ability of ocean to go back to a healthier reproduction system, then we actually can put aside greenwashing. We shouldn't be shy to actually look at how corporate social responsibility can incorporate. For example, we designed biodiversity enhancers that can be attached to gas rigs, and we looked at where impact has happened, that we can actually bring not blue wash or green wash, but really to create compensation and enhance biodiversity. And if we look at reef systems and mangrove forest as a measurable of protection of communities, we will realize that it is much more cost effective to create a local workforce that prevent environmental disasters and ecosystem collapse than to bring them back. And of course, the maritime industry and even defense, there are plenty of resources to achieve that. And education by itself is a revenue source, so aligning cross industry to create these standards.
Thank you, Shelley. So we continue now with the third driving question, which is, are green-blue startups actively shaping a new architecture for sustainable oceans, or are they ultimately constrained by geopolitics, capital flows, and policy inertia? So I would like to start first with Anna. We mentioned dual use. Investors are now chasing dual use technology, but ocean startups, they need to create this trust and continue showing that they have this green credibility. So will they need to follow this trend? What are the red lines for you that they should never cross to continue remaining sustainable?
I believe that I need to explain. My background is in military and defense and security issues, so I'm very aware of that. And all of my reports and all of my papers, even I'm a PhD in international security, so I came from Europe, and Europe now is facing a lot of challenges in terms of, okay, the connectivity between civil and defense issues. But we need to see this not as a threat or not as a bad thing. We need to see this like more, okay, security, it's not only a question of improve the strength of improve something. It's about the quality, and it's good for us to live in a more free world. It's about freedom and another kind of rights and liberties and so on. But I think that, as I said before, as soon as you start this connection and this relationship and this open dialogue between armed forces and all the institutional groups, you start to develop this relation and to see. We need to see defense and security more as a protection if they are used with a purpose. So as soon as we change the purpose of the use of the force, we have more connectivity, more, it's not about, okay, to improve and to put the use of the force. It's more about protection. Also protect, we need to use the force to protect the oceans and ethics and this circle of the ocean's life and the resources, of course. So as soon as we change the mindset of the purpose of what we are using, we have more credibility, more trust, more peace, more dialogue, and everything.
Thank you, Anna. Then I would like to ask Malshini, how can educational initiative directly empower green-blue startups to overcome policy inertia or secure funding?
Okay. That's a great question, because in Seychelles, when we launched the Blue Economy framework, it was very much a top-down framework. So as you know, I don't want to accuse all small island states of this, but government does tend to drive a little bit of business in small island states, and the private sector might have felt a little crowded out as a result. And when the Blue Economy framework launched, one of the most innovative things the Seychelles achieved was they launched the world's first blue bond, which I'm not too sure whether you know anything about, but it was valued at $15 million. And part of those proceeds actually comes back to the Seychelles in the form of grants. And what it has done is it has opened up an avenue of financing for the community and to sort of, I guess, generate a whole new level of entrepreneurialism in the country. Why? You can only access these grants in order to do projects in the Seychelles that have a conservation angle to them. And I believe currently it's about $3 million worth that you can tap into. And you have to be a citizen of Seychelles, or you have to have a company in the Seychelles. But the best thing about this is you can partner with educational institutions overseas, companies overseas, individuals overseas who have that kind of same mindset. Come in with a project, pilot a business, try and find out whether your business is sustainable and whether it has a blue economy angle as well. So while I will admit that at almost all levels of government or even in academia, there is a level of inertia. There is, of course, delay between policy implementation and actual action. But in the Seychelles, we've tried very hard to overcome it. We've tried to find avenues to not just encourage entrepreneurs, but also to give them the financing access. And as you all well know, running a business is not easy, but starting a business is even more difficult. Trying to get access to capital, trying to get access to a skilled workforce. I think these are all, the Seychelles is trying really hard to pioneer new ways of being.
Thank you. Shelley, you were mentioning that all stakeholders should be working together. Just not the great stakeholders of the maritime, like ship companies. Could you please elaborate a bit on this?
Absolutely, thank you. So looking as well at financing and how to overcome barriers from projects delivery, we saw that reaching out to the private, the public sector, as well as international financing has been very successful. For example, in Australia, in one of the most remote island locations called Mare Island, we were able to secure grants from Qantas, the airlines, which assisted us to overcome connectivity and so on. Sitting here with the great hope to see maritime and defense industry coming to the party, understanding that government agencies have massive resources already deployed at sea, which are traveling at routes which are impacted by these same activities. And very important, we always talk here about conservation. However, restoration is the next level that we can actually reach to. And utilizing these same routes of maritime and defense, we can share resources. We can, for example, deploy reef systems and create wildlife corridors, and we can share data. In many places like this island I mentioned, there have been many projects by universities and government agencies that actually came and monitored, but the data never stayed with the community. So actually creating the capability, the capacity of community members to do these surveys and create a database that hopefully we can share globally, that these baseline records that we collect in different agencies will find a home that can be shared with university, education providers, startups, as well as government agencies. So it's about connectivity and utilizing the mighty resources that maritime has can be the overcoming of all the barriers that currently marine conservation and restoration is facing.
Thank you, Shelley. And just to end up, Niha, you have heard all these insights. As an entrepreneur, could you share a bit how do you navigate these challenges so that everyone is and they know how these challenges that are related to regulation, market readiness, and political climate, please?
So I think you mentioned three things. One is market readiness. The second one is political climate, and the policy inertia. I think they're all, I'm mindful of the time, so I'm going to time myself. But it's something that I think every founder can go on for hours. I think policy inertia is something that we see typically in, again, is it the materials? Are we looking at regulations which are impacting the materials that you purchase or the technology that you purchase? Or is it the product of what you have built which enters the market? And labeling and standardization before and after both are important. We work in the space of replacing plastics with materials which are natural compounds derived from seaweed and other waste sources. There is very little differentiation right now between what you might, you can take a biomaterial, let's say these flowers, and you take a natural compound, but you synthesize and you chemically modify so much it becomes plastic. And if you just take a natural compound and you convert that into plastics, there's no differentiation because the differentiation is the source, which is it is a bioplastic, but not necessarily the end chemistry. So these differentiations make it harder for us to sell in the market. However, it's not just doom and gloom. I think as a startup, you identify where is the market readiness and where is the possibility of policy taking you further. We've invested in a lot of certifications. I think sometimes we're probably the only company that's investing so much in certification in isolation. I talk to myself. And we're now the only company in Asia that is certified to sell in EU. I know it's a little bit of an understanding of what really happens, but a lot of the purchase that happens in European Union is happening from Asia. And if you're looking for if manufacturers in the world are buying from Asia, and no matter what the origin and the commodity is, it needs to be certified and be compliant in the EU regulations. Then it comes to market readiness. Now, market readiness is, I can make an input material that replaces the plastic, or I can make the final product that you hold and eat out of. Let's say packaging, that you get from a takeaway joint. The difference really is in India, there is policy inertia. But either we can sit and fret about the policy inertia, and there is movement, and there are conversations, or you change your strategy of, let's say, not just building the technology that the next person can purchase. You go all the way down to the last mile and you improve your product, because improving your product improves the pricing of your product. Let's talk about the policy inertia and the tariffs that have come about. And I think everybody talks about the tariffs, and there's an opportunity for a lot of startups to think differently. You're not really looking at an assembly product where you take the bottle and the cap and, German engineering where you're putting the cars together. I think a lot, the opportunity with changing regulation is investing time and energy in building a technology that can be transferred and licensed, so that you're not really pinning your hopes down on the sale of the product. You can sell your technology and build the technology that retrofits really well anywhere in the world. And another one, sorry, just the last point that I want to make is when you're taking any sort of inputs, be it in the form of technology or in terms of raw materials, you must look at investing and de-risking your inputs all across the world. When we look at raw materials like seaweed, we also look at seaweed species that are available everywhere in the world. And we've invested a lot of time in different seaweeds. We realized that why not take the seaweed that's growing rampantly across the world as an algal plume. It's cheaper, nobody wants it, it's solving a problem. I know, I mean, it's much, much harder to work with that because, you know, biomaterials are like fingerprints every single time, new thing, new problem. But it's an opportunity. So it depends on where you want to invest.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Well, now it's time for questions. You can raise your hand and mention your name and your organization, please.
Yeah, hi. Advait Kulkarni from Vasundhara Geotechnologies. We have a downstream space applications company. We founded it 8 years ago. Now, my question is to the entire panel, more specifically to the academia being represented here. So from a space perspective, we've always looked at oceans and seas and water as a potential use case. And of course, space does have a lot of use case in a lot of things that we do. Let's be honest, military, non-military, in everything, there is a lot of space involved. But I really want the entire panel to address my curiosity as to how the ocean people look at space as just a technology enabler or maybe even something further deeper.
I think that when we look at the ocean industry, we understand that, as I mentioned before, it's driving from tourism and it's providing food security. So when we look at the ocean space, we want to see where there is wastage. For example, one of my favorite projects, deploying oyster reefs. The best base to create an oyster reef is on oyster shells, which are coming as a waste from the culinary industry. So when we look at connecting industries and we understand where ocean has been impacted by human activities, we can actually come and understand what are the offsets that we can utilize from other industries, as well how we can develop new practices like aquaculture on land. So the more that we actually upskill aquaculture on land, which can be a wonderful thing to do in ports, by the way, we have entire projects about that, then we can reduce the impact in ocean, and we can look at how do we better utilize the resources of ocean and put it back into good use, like deploying back the shells. So there is a lot of wonderful cases where we can see what ocean resources can be reutilized, like, for example, the algae bloom, a problem which is global. So definitely looking at resources in ocean and reusing them better and connecting between industries.
So just to clarify, you wanted to know how we perceive the ocean, right? From a small island state?
The ocean ecosystem looks at space as just an enabler, just a technology enabler, or maybe something further.
Okay.
The space sector, like the Earth observation satellites, the communication satellites, the weather observation, how does that play into your projects? And I'm focusing more on the non-military side of things.
Okay, so I can only speak from the Seychelles angle. With respect to everything she has talked about, yes, absolutely. These are all the benefits that are coming from it. And yes, there's that perspective as well. But from the Seychelles perspective, it's not just about the development of the ocean. It's the slight oxymoron of the sustainable development of the ocean space, right? Which you have to be very careful with that application. So for Seychelles, absolutely, we're trying to drive that. Within our blue economy model, we not only look at ports, shipping, tourism, we are also considering oil and gas, which is a very different way when you look at it. It's almost conflicting, right? How do you have a blue economy model, but you also have the approach of hydrocarbon exploration within that model? So all in all, we had to be very careful with how we apply the blue economy model. There is no universal definition, and therefore every country has had the flexibility of applying the model as they see fit to their context. So I would like to say that yes, you've got that space where you're looking at development, you're looking at all of that growth, but you cannot avoid and you cannot ignore anymore, and you cannot sideline that conservation and the restoration space that she's talking about as well. To that end, the Seychelles has also declared 30% of its ocean space a marine protected area. So we're one of the first countries in the world to have reached our target well ahead of the SDGs. 30% is quite huge, and we did that in 2030, I believe. Within that space, you're going to have areas where you cannot develop. You've got to leave things be as they are. So this will lead to a larger conversation in future about how to manage this space. What do you develop, what you don't develop? But as of now, I would say we have to be very careful about how we approach the whole thing.
Thank you. I'm Advocate Deepak Parmar. I specialize in cyber law and IP law, and I was former faculty of IPI chair professor. Rather. So my question, Milind, is directly addressing to you about a green bond. What kind of a control you have for granting when outsider are becoming a partner, whether it's academia or you, ma'am. So in that case, say, just to give you a little, say, sometimes people like a VC, they are looking for what is price or they are getting in, and what will be the valuation when they're getting out. So they are looking at 2 points, entry point and exit point. They are not really interested in a national priority. So whether your green bond has some kind of a national priority linked to it, what are the priority you are looking at in a green, these 1, 2, 3 are a top priority, and we are more keen toward granting to them, and what kind of a control people misusing your grant.
Okay, that's such an interesting question. We could probably discuss this more offline, but just as an overview, it's the blue bond. So it's a blue bond. There are also green bonds being issued, but ours was the first blue bond. And since then, there's been about 6 bonds that's been issued around the world, Belize, I think Barbados and all of that. So valued at $15 million. The beauty of the bond was that it was a public-private partnership. We'd not just had the Seychelles government involved. It was a strategic priority area because we had launched the Blue Economy model, and we wanted to stop battling it out in the financing landscape to try and get capital for climate change initiatives, right? Because we are one of the countries that are the most vulnerable when it comes to climate change. So the blue bond was our attempt to try and sort of diverge around those pathways and find alternative financing. So what we did was we had a debt for nature swap where we earmarked some of our debt and we swapped it. And we also had this blue bond. So two pathways, really. And we had the revenues that come in. And now you have a grant option. And you also have a loan option from these 2 pathways. The grant is about $3 million that you can tap into. And I would say that it's very difficult to cheat because I was part of this grant process. I myself was a beneficiary of this grant. And the World Bank agreement that I signed to undertake this grant was several pages long. And there was no way that I could do anything that was greenwashing or blue washing, if you want to call it. So I would say the process is very stringent. I would say it's very transparent. I would say it's very authentic, but only because I have personally been a part of it. So I know it inside out. And if you want to discuss other ways to partner with UNICEF for these grants, I would be very happy to talk to you afterwards.
Thank you.
Maybe one last question. Quickly, ma'am.
Hi, my name's Jennifer L. Lewis. I'm an independent consultant on gender, and I just wanted to thank all of you inspiring women for being here today, and I'm just blown away by your initiatives. And Anna, you said something that I thought was really interesting. You said, we're not here to explore and conquer anymore. We're here to respect each other and to have mutual respect. And since all of you are powerful women who are really trailblazers, I'm just wondering, how can we build such respect in systems outside of this room when all of the past systems have been built on the backs of perhaps ignoring women's wisdom, perhaps even indigenous women's wisdom. And of course, that's not to say that there's not men who have been here who are also brilliant and coming up with solutions. I'm not trying to throw men under the bus. But I'm just wondering, we're all in agreement here and we're in this small room here, but how do we go forward and make people catch on to what's being said here? Thank you.
I will sum up. Thank you, first of all. This is my daily life. That's why I'm here. I'm here in India. I came from Portugal, of course, like you, and with giving my time to develop this, to increase the dialogue. This is how you get respect every day. It's not a monument that you build. Okay, it's a daily life basis. You need. That's why I talk about purpose. I talk about accountability. This is the main challenge. The main challenge is this is where it comes the truth and respect and this is when you share information, you are sharing also knowledge. You can fix mistakes and you can improve and not giving you too much, I'm better than you. So we need to be very humble with nature. I heard that you get to a point that you need to respect. Okay, there are parts that you cannot go there and having resources. You need to respect things and acceptation. This is all about acceptation. And we need to be very aware in these issues of blue economy, green economy. It's all about us. So I know I never stop believing. And you get to a point that, okay, there are people, we need to accept each other, but we need to rebuild and we need not to give up. So we need to build every day. So thank you for you all of your efforts and work. I'm here also to share this message of hope.
Well, such an incredible panel. I was very excited to learn from each of you. Thank you very much for attending this session. I think that's the end of our session. So I wish you a good Saint Martin session. Well,
thank you.